not died at Natzweiler. The writer had been imprisoned at Pforzheim in Germany, and in the next-door cell, a female English agent had managed to smuggle a note to her. She gave her name as Nora Baker, from 4 Taverton Street in London. There was no doubt that this was Noor. But more disturbing was the evidence that Noor had been tortured.
Her hands and feet were chained. I could hear the blows she received. She suffered much.
My uncle Vilayat and Noor had a very, very close bond. So when he knew that she'd been imprisoned at Pforzheim, he spent a lot of time trying to research the details of her imprisonment, her treatment during that time, if she'd been tortured. He wanted to find out everything. He wanted to know the truth.
The prison records from Pforzheim still exist, and what's evident from their contents is that Noor was still lying to the enemy.
Oh, that's interesting. Nora Baker's very clearly marked here, 27th of November, 43, listed as a student born in 1920, which is the wrong date. Born in London. Is obviously trying to confuse him a bit.
But there is one last tiny detail in Noor's prison records which would finally lead to the truth of what happened to her. The date of her transfer from Pforzheim, the 11th of September, 1944. Vera Atkins, who had reopened Noor's file, knew that on the 12th of September, 1944, the day after Noor left Pforzheim, 4 of her missing women agents had been executed at Dachau concentration camp. It now seemed likely that Noor was one of them. Dachau. The very name symbolizes all that was evil with Nazi Germany.
It had always been a place I wanted to avoid. I didn't want to be confronted with the harsh reality of this person's death. Probably because I was brought up with her in a sense. Not that she was there physically, but she was always present in conversations in the family. So it took me a long time to come to terms with this, with her death at Dachau.
The SS deliberately kept no records of the SOE women agents processed at Dachau. But after the war, the testimony of former prisoners eventually revealed their fate.
And these 2 are mentioning that there are some English and French women had been brought to the camp. So he remembers that there were 3 French and 1 English woman. I saw them walking towards the crematory, and then I heard shots, but I didn't see the corpses of the women.
The Englishwoman was Noor. Behind the crematorium at Dachau is an isolated wood. It's here where the 4 women were executed.
It was just simply said that these 4 women were taken out into a yard, they held hands, and they were shot in the back of the neck. And this was the story. There was something comforting about that story because they were able to hold hands, they were shot cleanly, they didn't suffer unduly, and indeed in the letters to the next of kin, this was said.
But there was to be one final twist in Noor's story. 14 years after she was executed, a letter was to emerge which gave an eyewitness account of what had really happened in Noor's final minutes at Dachau. It was brutal in its detail.
It described how she was brought to the camp. She was picked out, probably because of her dark skin particularly, but also because she'd been mentioned as a dangerous prisoner because she'd refused to cooperate.
Noor had been savagely attacked by the SS officer in charge.
She was terribly beaten by Rupert all over her body. She did not cry or say anything. When Rupert got tired and the girl was a bloody mess, he told her he would shoot her. The only word she said before Rupert shot her from behind was liberty.
And she'd been effectively beaten to death in the most cruel, grotesque way by sadists, German sadist guards, who had enjoyed it.
For the first time, David is presented with the man who brutally murdered his aunt, Friedrich Wilhelm Rupert.
He was executed in May 1946 in Landsberg am Lech.
Looking at a picture of this man, I didn't know yesterday that I'd be looking at my aunt's executioner. It's very chilling to almost come face to face with this person. We knew that she'd had a horrific experience before being executed here, but I can't really express the feeling of seeing the person who committed that crime. She died at the hands of barbarians like that, but she died for a certain cause that she believed in. She believed that she was doing the right thing. She believed that the small role that she played would help somehow liberate so many oppressed people.
For her bravery while working undercover in occupied France, Noor Inayat Khan would win the French Croix de Guerre, as well as Britain's George Cross, one of only 3 awarded to women in World War II. One of the final letters that Noor sent from France was to her sister, Claire.
How I miss you. What a celebration when we meet again. Wherever we go in the world, and whoever we meet, you can never find a substitute for a brother and sister. We had such a laugh, and my sister made me laugh more than anyone can. I often remember the last rushed evening we had together. And you guessed, you clever little girl. Still, we will be seeing you soon, and we will have such a lot to tell each other.
My mother finds it very difficult, the thought of her sister's death, and of course the rather cruel details of her last hours. I doubt my mother will ever see this place. I think it would be just too difficult for her. When you're confronted with the harsh reality of exactly what happened here back in 1944.
Claire is left with her memories, the letters Noor wrote, the music they played together, and the photographs of her sister, one of the Second World War's forgotten heroes.